NASCAR makes a interesting rule, to say the least, for the Truck Series, so let's talk about it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving as well. NASCAR, in a cost-saving measure, has come up with a rule for the Truck Series that is, well, interesting to say the least. Let's get into this article. From Shane Walters at RacingNews.com. New fire suit rules for the NASCAR Truck Series in 2025. New suit rules for behind-the-wall crew members. Colors are at the team's discretion. They must be consistent across an organization. The Craftsman, Sunoco, Goodyear, and NASCAR bar logos shown in the guidelines are highly recommended, but they are not required. No sponsorship branding is allowed. And then let's get to the rules for the over-the-wall crew members. New rules for wall crew members. Suits must be used for the entire season. Sponsorship branding is allowed. So we'll start off with the behind-the-wall crew members who don't cross over pit road, don't change the tires, all that. That's basically going to be like 4 to 5 guys. That's going to be your crew chief. That's going to be your main mechanic or your car chief, depending on what you want to call it there. Your engine tuner, and then, of course, you're also going to have a lead engineer. So you're going to have probably 4, maybe 5 people there. And what's interesting is they all have to be the same color. Like, you can't have a multicolor. You can't have, like, all kinds of different colors going on. It all has to be a consistent color for them. But they can't have any sponsorship branding on there. And that's going to be kind of a point of contention, I'm thinking, for at least a few Truck Series members, which we'll actually get into that in just a minute. But the other rule on here that I found interesting was that it's preferred if you put the NASCAR branding and the Sunoco branding, it's preferred if you put NASCAR's logos on there. You can sponsor NASCAR, but you can't put your own sponsor on there for the behind-the-wall gang. Now, of course, the rules are a little bit different for the over-the-wall gang. You know, the tire changer, the gas man, the jack man, and the tire carriers. They are, in fact, allowed to have sponsorship branding on there, but they have to use the same fire suit for the entire season, which means that sponsor has to be on there for the entire season, which could possibly be problematic, which I'll get into in just a minute. But why is NASCAR regulating the fire suits is the question that needs to be answered. And, well, let's take a look at the cost of a fire suit. See right here, most of the time they wear the jacket, and the pants is normally the guys that go over the wall. That's what they got going on. So to get a jacket, that's going to be about $369 if you get one from Simpson here. And then you're going to want, of course, get the pants to go with it. It can either be like $729 according to this one, or $849. So to make it easy, let's just make it easy, do some easy math here. Let's say you got 10 crew members, the 6 that go over the wall, and let's say you got about 4 that stay behind the wall. If you add that up with those two combined costs, that's going to be $12,180, and that, of course, is before you do the sublimation, and you also have to have the fire-approved shoes. Now, the sublimation, you can make that cost whatever you want it to be. Some of these teams own their own screen printing, sublimation, or whatever shops. Some don't. But let's just say, for sake of argument, $100 for each item to be sublimated. And then you've got, if you get the fanciest shoes, like the New Balance shoes, they're pretty popular on pit road. You can get those from SRI from $155.83. So if you add the $100 for the sublimating and you add the $155 for the pit-approved New Balances there, that's going to make you have an additional cost of $2,550. So adding that to the other cost previously, you're going to have about $14,730 in pit crew uniforms. So on paper, it looks like NASCAR is actually doing something here. They're going to save these truck teams some money. However, in practice, this isn't really saving anybody any money, because if you have a sponsor sign on and they want to pay the additional money, they'll pay that extra $14,000 or so to have their branding on the fire suits and the other items that the pit crew is going to wear that particular day. So on paper, it looks good, but in practice, that is usually a cost that is factored in. Like the sponsor can either buy like a spot on the fire suit or they can't buy a spot on the fire suit. What NASCAR has now done has limited that amount of revenue, because you could potentially make a little bit of extra money. Let's say you charge $20,000 and it only cost you $14,000. That's pocketing a little bit of money that you could pay that pit crew or some other expenses, hotels, whatever. But now that you have to get all that money up front, you have to have one sponsor now that wants to sponsor you for the whole season, that's going to cover that $14,000, $20,000, however much profit you would be making off of selling that particular logo on the pit crew uniform. You now have to get all that from one sponsor that's going to be on that uniform for the full season. In that same article from Shane Walters, we did get a quote from Josh Reume where he addressed all of this. Each offseason, we've added expensive rule changes in the truck series. Owners have to spend everything they squirrel away during the year just to maintain. We need change and improvement, but the magnitude needs adjustment, in my opinion. Rules typically limit our ability to be creative in finding cost-effective solutions. For instance, next year, teams will be required to have non-sponsor branded behind-the-wall fire suits. This is removing a sellable asset from teams. He went on to say, I don't believe this rule applies to Cup and the Xfinity series, which, if that's the case, is quite interesting because it's essentially showing that more seasoned organizations see the value. And I couldn't have put it any better myself. The fact that you can't have that as an extra thing to sell with your sponsorship, where you can add on like just you can make a few thousand extra having that branding on your fire suits, when they talk to the crew chief. The crew chief, that's the biggest one. It's not actually the over the wall. Over the wall, of course, you're going to see that on pit stops. But when a car is doing well or when something happens to a car, they always go up and talk to the crew chief. Now the crew chief has no branding on there other than optionally they can have the NASCAR, Sunoco, or Goodyear logo on there. I mean, NASCAR sees value in it because they're encouraging them to put that on there. I don't see why NASCAR doesn't understand why the teams wouldn't see value in it as well, because you can sell that as well and make some additional money on your sponsorship deal. It just seems like a rule that they probably meant well, but in practice, they're actually possibly taking money away from these teams. And I think Josh Reume said it best there with his quote. Two other team owners who are sort of high profile that didn't agree with it posted a couple of memes in response to it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. showed someone duct taping a crack in concrete here. And Denny Hamlin went with the always popular Phil Swift here, slapping the flex tape on the water rushing out of a crack there. So yeah, absolutely agree. NASCAR trying to bring costs down for these teams has done nothing more than put a Band-Aid on a huge open wound. So it's going to be interesting going forward. But for me, this was the most ridiculous rule that I've ever seen NASCAR make. It doesn't save anybody any money. If anything, you're possibly costing these truck teams money, but it is what it is. NASCAR is gonna NASCAR. News in the 2311 Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR case. Judge sets deadlines for renewed motion for preliminary injunction. NASCAR response due by December 9th. Teams reply due by December 12th. The hearing date is to be determined. So December 9th and December 12th are our next dates where we'll get some information on this preliminary injunction hearing. Of course, the injunction hearing is so that 2311, if they win it, could operate as a chartered team while the lawsuit goes on. NASCAR obviously fighting that. Feel like a broken record because we keep talking about the same thing over and over again. This has nothing to do with the actual case. This is just a preliminary pretrial motion. We haven't even got to the whether or not we're going to have a trial, the trial to decide whether we're going to have a trial, or the hearing to decide whether we're going to have a trial, or however it works. I don't know. Getting tired of talking about it because it's like just the same circle. We're talking about the preliminary injunction over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day. Bill Murray, ever seen that movie? All right, that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, I would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll just keep making these things. If you're already subscribed, you know I appreciate you all as well. If you got a question, comment, or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section. I try to get to as many of them as I can. And if you want to help out the channel, visit the merch store. The link is in the description sometimes if I remember to put it in there. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.